Unfortunately, the big problem is it's going to be hard to determine objectively whether someone is impaired by marijuana. It's kind of like evaluating whether they're impaired by smoking a cigarette. Is it possible? Probably, but you can't really test for it. So drug testing becomes a problem. Um, don't there's really no sense unless you're required by federal law to do it to test for marijuana in a pre-employment situation because you're not going to be able to deny somebody a job based on the fact that they have smoked marijuana before they worked for you. The next drug testing scenario would be during the work. We want to know you messed something up. Were you impaired at the time? Well, even assuming you can conduct the drug test very contemporaneous with whichever they did wrong, um, the fact that they're going to fail the drug test is not going to really get you anywhere on marijuana now because all they have to say is, but I smoked it last week or last night at home. The testing is not generally going to show whether they were impaired while they were at work. It's just going to show whether they have relatively recently been exposed to marijuana, and the law says they have the right to have been exposed to marijuana to use it as they please, as long as they're not at work um, during work hours or using your equipment. So that's a problem. You'll have to rely on, again, articulable symptoms, um, visible symptoms that you can argue in constitute marijuana impairment. There is the Drug-Free Workplace Act, which is a federal law that requires some federal grant and contract recipients to maintain a drug-free workplace. It sounds like that's a sort of exception to these protections. However, that Drug-Free Workplace Act does not say you cannot have employees who smoke marijuana, especially not ones who do it outside of work. It just says people shouldn't be using marijuana or any other drugs at work, selling it at work, possessing it at work, those types of things. And the only further specific thing is it says you should have penalties for people who violate your policies. It doesn't say you have to fire people or can't employ people who bring marijuana to work. It just says you have to have some sort of penalty, if you want to call it that. Consequence, I guess, is a better word, which could theoretically include telling them not to bring the marijuana to work again. So I'm not sure just saying you're subject to the Drug-Free Workplace Act is enough to get you an exception from having to employ people with marijuana. My best guess is it's probably not, but I suppose the legal question and the possible challenge is still out there. Finally, just review your drug testing policies, assuming you have them in place, see whether they specifically reference marijuana. If not, then you might not need to change anything. If they do, however, then you may need to take that out or address it differently.